Good morning, everybody. John Williams, Luisa Alanis, Hector Gomez, Tracy Bogert, president of the Bexar County MAGA Republicans, coronavirus deniers, and Vladimir Putin bootlickers. Welcome in.
Now, Chris Duel.
Oh, yeah, it's the weekend. It is Throwback Thursday, June 10th, 2021. We begin the weekend on Thursday because we can, because we should, because this is America. If you have an employer who expects you to work, or, and you can go to work, but as far as putting in your fullest effort, feel free to either hit me up or Shannon Salty Sweeney. We're not doctors, but we can write you a note. We can write you an excuse that you can present to your employer and just saying, hey, man, the weekend begins on Thursday, so don't expect me to be fully engaged with these little, mundane tasks that you ask me to do at work. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. It's a Throwback Thursday. If you're on Facebook Live, and we stream live video every morning on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760's Facebook pages with portals to that video through YouTube, Twitch, and elsewhere. It's a Throwback Thursday, so I'm wearing my Beatles t-shirt because they're kind of throwback. Yeah, two of them are dead, and they broke up in 1970. So, yeah, I guess that's a throwback. And I'm wearing my San Antonio Commanders baseball cap, even though they were a football team, the latest in an ongoing stream of San Antonio football teams in minor children of a lesser god football leagues that go kaput. Shannon Salty Sweeney wearing a hoodie that looks like a hoodie from here on video. Is there a hood associated with that All-Star? What is that? The Sugar Bowl? What is that?
Yeah, it's like a baseball warm-up.
That's even cooler.
This was the media gift at the Sugar Bowl.
Even cooler.
It's nice, I guess.
And your baseball cap, Hard Knocks Life out of Killeen, Texas. Of course, I believe that's the podcast of our good friend, Mike Hardball Harge.
Yep, and it's a Last Stand hat. For those that don't know, they have grown their operation. Not only do they have official Texas Longhorn headwear, but they have since branched to Texas State and Texas Tech. I wouldn't be surprised if a UTSA is on the horizon for San Antonio folk.
So what kind of a hat? A last stage hat?
Last Stand hat.
Last Stand hat. I'm guessing that's an Austin company making that hat?
Yes, he is out of Austin. I think he started just started the hats with I think their logo is a buffalo. And then they started doing baseball hats for people in Occupy Left Field, which for those that don't know is a really popular out at the dish, just sitting out at left field. I mean, it's a party with players' parents and it's might even be a bigger party than inside the dish. We'll have to see this weekend at the Super Regional as that game and series has sold out at the dish for the Texas Super Regional this weekend. So I'm sure Occupy Left Field will very much be occupied and filled to max with everyone who couldn't get into the dish this weekend.
Very, very cool. So this guy starts this hat company, and now
Mike.
Say again.
His name is also Mike,
but it's not Mike Harge.
No.
It's a different Mike. Okay,
everyone's named Mike.
Yeah, everybody's named Mike. Be like Mike. So, but now, as you mentioned, he's got official contracts to do officially licensed hats with the Texas Longhorns, with Texas Tech, UTSA on the way. That's cool.
All gas, no brakes hat. Of course, the official phrase of Sark has become a very popular hat. Sark and a bunch of anyone who watched the orange and white game saw a lot of players on the sideline who weren't actively playing. They were wearing those hats. So
how cool is that?
So get in on it before it blows up even more.
Do it. Yes. So as I describe attire on this Throwback Thursday, Dave Ayler is our soundscape stylist. And as we further established on yesterday's show, he's from St. Louis. So therefore, he is a St. Louis Cardinals fan. Therefore, he personally took abuse from the Cincinnati Reds' Joey Votto. And we played that audio for you yesterday. So today, Dave, you are defiantly, even though they've sucked the last 10 games or so, you are wearing a St. Louis Cardinals t-shirt.
But they did beat Cleveland last night.
They're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Woo! Very, very nice. Speaking of who's back, the Houston Astros, they win again last night. They beat the Boston. They've owned the Red Sox for the last 10 days because there was a series in Houston, and now then there was another interim series that the Red Sox went out and won their games, and then these two teams are meeting again at Fenway, and the Astros continue their domination over the Boston Red Sox. Astros win last night at Fenway, 8-3. That means in the last 10 days, the Red Sox and the Astros have faced each other 6 times, and the Astros are 5-1 in those 6 games. They'll play one more time tonight at Fenway. First pitch, 6:10 tonight. Zach Greinke on the mound for the Houston Astros tonight, so that's nice if Greinke has his stuff tonight. But Shannon, Astros now, with that win last night, have won 7 of their last 10 games. I haven't looked at the other teams in baseball. I'll do that this morning, the little last 10. I do believe 7 of 10 probably means the Houston Astros are, at the moment, the hottest team in baseball.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for people start saying that they're using spider tack or something.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Waiting.
That's in pot. They can't be winning by themselves.
Out Springer?
Yeah, exactly. But sadly, and the Arizona Diamondbacks suck. I get it. But the Oakland A's win again yesterday at Oakland. They beat the Diamondbacks 4-0. So what that means is the A's continue to lead the AL West by 1 game. Astros keep winning, but sadly, the Oakland A's keep winning. So it's a 1-game lead for the A's over the Astros. We'll see what happens today. Final game of this series at Fenway against Boston. So, Shannon, some other big news. Well, wait a minute. I want to make sure. Let me see. I don't want to intrude upon the salty shakedown. No, this doesn't intrude. Okay. Just double checking, making sure this is not in the salty shakedown, which you're kind enough to give me a preview of. LeBron James. And my question about, and I'm a LeBron James defender, and exactly. It's getting a little tougher since he walked off the court in a huff with 5 minutes to play in one of those playoff losses to the Phoenix Suns. And then yesterday we learned that LeBron's going to change his number. Whoa! And he's done this before, changing his number from number 23. Next season, he will be wearing number 6. Of course, in Miami, when he was with the Heat, he wore number 6. And when he plays for Team USA, and apparently reports are he will abandon his country, Team USA, this summer, coached by Gregory Charles Popovich in Tokyo in the Olympics. But when LeBron chooses to be a Patriot and play for Team USA, he also wears number 6. My problem here, Shannon, is why do you announce this now? I mean, you were playing last week. You got eliminated. There are other teams playing in the. Why can't you announce this on July 9th? I find this. I think LeBron's a little bummed that he is out of the spotlight. So I think he's doing anything he can to kind of turn the spotlight back on him.
Well, there's a lot on this. For one, for the Olympic thing, Olympics, I believe, are a lot like soccer, where the numbers are 1 through however many people are on the roster.
Okay.
So he can't be number 23 for the Olympics. So that's where the number 6 came in. And then when he went to Miami, number 23 was retired, so he couldn't donate there.
Who's the retired Miami Heat 23? That's a great. Now you got me intrigued.
Sure,
obviously, that wasn't Michael Jordan. I'll Google that.
There's rumor that his number in Looney Tunes is actually going to be number 6.
Oh, there you go.
But my first thought on this, or there's a couple. 2 main thoughts I had were when Anthony Davis was rumored to be heading to the Lakers, one of the big contentions was Anthony Davis was also number 23, and that he wanted to keep that number.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow LeBron convinced him to come to LA and to change his number. I think he's number 3. And he's going to stay with that number. because he's tried and true. And
Because he's an adult.
But
yeah.
It's kind of like we went through all of that just for you to end up changing your number anyway. So you could have just given it to AD to start.
Yep.
Number 2 was that I immediately thought of Kobe Bryant, because Kobe Bryant was number 8. Then he changed to number 24. And I know the change was due to some outside of basketball circumstances. It was kind of like changing the guard. He was a new man.
Yeah.
And then he had both numbers retired for the Lakers. Now, LeBron already has 1 ring with the Lakers as number 23. Is he thinking he's going to get his jersey retired or put in the Ring of Honor or something because of that ring? Let me check number 23 off. Let's see. If I want to be better than Kobe, I'm going to have to do it again. But he did it in 2 numbers.
Wow.
So let me change my number here.
Interesting. I Googled, Shannon, and I didn't know this. The Miami Heat retired number 23 in April of 2003 to honor Michael Jordan.
Mhm.
The Heat is the only NBA team other than the Chicago Bulls to retire the number 23 to honor Michael Jordan. It's
pretty awesome when you think about it.
It's
Strange, but awesome.
strange, yeah. But okay.
I feel like all the team, it needs to be all or none, right? If other teams that didn't have him on their team were going to retire the jersey, like let's all.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then a lot of people yesterday were obviously saying, oh, he's not living up to the Michael Jordan number 23, so he's got to change it back to 6.
Not living. He won a title last year, And
he won a title in Cleveland.
And he won one in Cleveland, and he was banged up this year, and AD was banged up this year to automatically jump on him for not living up to number 23. I disagree with, but I just found, and it's interesting. I also heard that one of the reasons also when he went to the Lakers, and maybe it was pre-Lakers, one of the reasons he kept 23 and not 6, apparently his deal with Nike, Nike had a backlog of number 23 LeBron James jerseys, which is weird. And apparently that backlog no longer exists. So now he's free to change the number. I don't know. It's just weird.
I mean, that's like, what was the Dallas Cowboys player just switched to number 9? And they made him buy out.
Jalen Smith.
Yeah,
Jalen Smith.
Buy out all of his previous jerseys in order to make the change. LeBron has that kind of coin.
Yeah.
And he's LeBron James. Chances are you could sell those jerseys because they will be worth something down the road, if not already.
That's a great point. They're going to sell more jerseys just by doing
Michael
this.
Jordan, they still sell the crap out of Michael Jordan jerseys.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. How much? Okay. When the NBA sells a LeBron James jersey, how much of a cut does LeBron James get? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm imagining if you're on the level of LeBron James, it's something. So, I mean, bottom line here, and you're right. LeBron James is going to make more money because there's going to be hardcore LeBron James fans going, ooh, I need the 23 and I need the number 6. Mm-hmm. Or it's so, yeah. There's money to be made here. It's just weird. And again, I know I'm an old guy, get off my lawn, but some of the greatest players ever, Bill Russell didn't need to change numbers. And I move into the Cowboys, Troy Aikman, Roger Staubach, Emmitt Smith. They were cool with their numbers.
Tom Brady is probably furious. He's probably like, why even have numbers at all? I'm not going to know who to pass it to. I'm not going to know who LeBron is on the court with that new number. It's going to change everything.
Oh, man. Wow. So, all right. So there's that. We got a lot to talk about this morning. There was one NBA game last night. The Phoenix Suns, they've now won 5 playoff games in a row. They won 3 in a row against the Lakers to close them out. They're now up 2-0 on the Denver Nuggets. It wasn't even close last night. Phoenix beat Denver 123-98. Now, as we say this, on a certain level, Denver is without their second leading scorer, Jamal Murray. But nonetheless, we kind of thought maybe Nikola Jokic, coming off the announcement that he's the most valuable player of the NBA, we thought that might bring him more juice. Jokic did his job last night. He had a double-double, 24 points, 13 rebounds. He also had 3 assists, but 25-point victory for the Phoenix Suns, kind of like the Brooklyn-Milwaukee series, which resumes tonight. That one's 2-0 with 2 home big wins for Phoenix. Tonight, Milwaukee comes home to try to get back into the series. Brooklyn up 2-0. That'll be your early game at 6:30 on the 4-letter network. And then at 9, your late game, Utah up 1-0 on the Clippers, hosting the Clippers tonight. We will get into everything NBA, lots of NFL news, disturbing story out of the University of Michigan. We'll get into it, coming from the son of the legendary coach Bo Schembechler. This gets ugly on a Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky level. We'll walk you through that story a little bit later. Shannon's salty shakedown in the 7 o'clock hour. This day in sports history, sports birthdays. Tanner Carlson, our go-to guy on all things Dallas Cowboys and Tebow bashing. Tanner Carlson going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour. Dave Ayler, St. Louis Cardinals fan, is your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Lots of comments on Facebook Live. We'll take a look at those comments. You can join us on Facebook Live. You can tweet Shannon at Shannon B. Sweeney. You can tweet me at Chris Duel. You can't tweet Dave Ayler because he hates Twitter, but he's on Facebook. And we're trying to get him on TikTok, but, we're working on it. Quick break. Lots coming up. Thank you for hanging out with us on a Throwback Thursday. You're listening to The Chris Duel Show. Eric Winchester, Greg Helt, John Williams, Anthony Del Toro, Hector Gomez, Luisa Alanis, Jason Paniagua, Clint Proctor, Steve Duraco, the original Rock, the human element, the original Italian stallion, founding member of the San Antonio Polar Bear Club, Hector Gomez, Tracy Bogert, chairman and president of the Bear County MAGA Republicans, and QAnon Marjorie Taylor Greene supporters. All right, I need coffee badly. I'm still drinking the Black Rifle coffee, thanks to Joel Cologne, listener to the show. All right. I've had a hard time pouring this coffee out of this. It always drips down the container, so I've got a trash can underneath it this time. You learn the hard way. No spillage this time. I put the trash can there and it doesn't spill. It doesn't drip. That's good. Eric, I know you wrote a lot. I'll come back and read that in a sec. Thank you, Eric Winchester. Eric says, in the NBA, unlike the NFL, the money made from jersey sales and other licensed products has been shared equally since the 1995 group licensing agreement was put together by the union. That means LeBron's teammate, Anderson Varejao, makes as much as LeBron, even though sales of James' jersey rank second in the league, and Varejao isn't close to the top 50. Here's a list of top NBA jerseys if you want to cover that. Cool, Eric. I'll check that out. We might get into that. Thank you for that. Eric Winchester will give you a producer credit on today's show. You can put that on the resume. That and $3.95 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. All right. I got to record something here. Let me see. Do I have time? Probably not, but I'm going to try it anyway. Just because. See, now I saved that, so I would need this. During the breaks, I've got to record some spots. So I know you keep me down probably during the breaks, but the way this board is set up, I have to turn the mic on to record. So. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to, I don't have time in this segment, but at the top of the hour, I'll probably do it. So, okay, I'll do that. Thanks. Okay, Eric, I'm going to go look at your link on NBA jerseys here. Luka, the number 2 selling jersey. Wow. Kawhi at number 13, although he will be perpetually number 2. Brooklyn Nets, number 2 in most popular team merchandise. That's so funny. People are such bandwagon fans. Nobody gave a damn about the Brooklyn Nets until recently. Most popular in team merchandise now. Number 1, the Lakers. Number 2, the Brooklyn Nets. 3, Golden State Warriors. 4, Celtics. 5, Sixers. 6, Heat. 7, Bulls. 8, Mavericks. 9, Toronto Raptors. 10, Milwaukee Bucks. I guess because they've been winning with Giannis, at least in the regular season. Yeah, people are such bandwagon fans. Let me see here. What was I looking at? Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney on a Throwback Thursday, June 10th. Welcome in. We got a lot going on. We got a lot to cover, and you are welcome to join us along the way. If you've got something on your mind, if you've got a sports take, you can dial us up on the phone lines anytime we don't have a guest, and we've only got one guest scheduled for today, and that's just after 8 o'clock. That'll be our good friend Tanner Carlson. We'll talk Dallas Cowboys, NFL, and more with Tanner. But until then, and even after then, because we're with you till 9 o'clock, you can dial us up at 800-707-9760. That's the phone line. Lots of people joining us on Facebook Live. We stream live video of the show on AM 1300 and Ticket 760's Facebook pages with a YouTube link to that video, and you can get to it through Twitch as well. Do want to mention this, starting on Monday, and we're getting closer to Monday. And, oh, by the way, Monday will be Flag Day. Just letting you know that for those patriotic people out there. LeBron James, that doesn't apply to you since you're blowing off the Olympics and therefore your country for basketball. I don't know that that's official yet, but I'm ramping up my angst against LeBron on that. Starting Monday, you listen to this show, you're going to get a chance to win a Ultimate Father's Day grand prize. If you win per day, you get a $50 Rudy's gift card, and then you're qualified to win a Traeger grill from Barbecue Outfitters, and you'll also get a $100 gift card to Specs. So we're going to do that all next week. Somebody's going to get the Ultimate Father's Day package, grand prize package. It's presented by LearnToBuyAndSellCars.com, which is a fascinating website. All of us, not all of us, but 99% of us either drive cars. So you're either in the market for a car now or you will be. And that's a great website, LearnToBuyAndSellCars.com. All right. This time every morning, we like to do the high five play of the day. Somebody's always deserving of a high five, and we like to give out those high fives because it's the right thing to do. And high five, not just the name of the segment, but a very cool venue, actually two of them in the Austin area where you can enjoy great food. It's kid-friendly, but also adult-friendly with adult beverages. There's laser tag. There is axe throwing, as Shannon might become the face of high five axe throwing. Shannon, tell us about high five in the Austin area.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of the great activities they have over there, as well as at their Lakeway location, double-decker bowling. There is bowling on 2 different levels. It's so cool. I didn't know you could do that. I thought bowling alleys were too heavy to be on the second floor, but nonetheless, they've got it. It's an awesome place to hang out, especially on Thursdays. $5 frozen margs, 3 for $5 sliders, and half price on that axe throwing. And Austin FC back in action. I believe the game is at 2:00 on Saturday.
Woo!
So get over to High Five to check out the game. It is an official Austin FC pub club. Chris, today's high five goes to a man who has changed the narrative for the better about himself. Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. Now, this is his 3rd win in this category, which is pretty exceptional. Only 4 players have ever done that. He won in 2018, he won in 2019, and now in 2021. Notably, in 2020, not only did he not win the award, but he was most known for stretching out and touching all of the microphones just prior to everything shutting down to COVID-19. He thought he was being funny.
Yeah.
He didn't realize it was kind of the beginning of the end. Rudy Gobert, congrats on your Defensive Player of the Year award. Congrats on changing the narrative in your favor. We know you feel remorse for that. You thought you were being funny. Clearly it wasn't. You did apologize, but congrats on this award and a high five for an exceptional season, and good luck in the rest of the playoffs because he is a member of the Utah Jazz, Chris.
Well, and yes, so especially good luck in this series against Kawhi Leonard and the LA Clippers. Not that I'm bitter about Kawhi or anything, but you're right. And Shannon, a lot of people hating on Rudy Gobert, and I get it. And I will admit I've been one of those people hating on Rudy Gobert. And you're right. In that moment, and it was like the night before or the night of, I think it was the night before, that the entire NBA shut down due to COVID, and Rudy Gobert in an interview on camera trying to be funny, got like a microphone and was like rubbing it on himself and then rubbing it on the interviewer and rubbing it on other players. And he was just trying to make a mockery of COVID-19 and showing that he wasn't worried about it. Now, obviously, in March of 2020, not everybody realized the gravity. Not everybody realized the number of deaths that were coming around the world and across America. So he's an easy target. And I guess out of ignorance, there's some things you don't joke about. And I guess had he done his research even that early in March of 2020, he probably would have realized this is not something to joke about. So, but I get it. I mean, you and I talk for 3 hours every day. Sometimes we say things we think are funny. Sometimes we cross the line when we don't mean to cross the line. I don't think you or I, and I don't think Rudy Gobert ever meant to, create to hurt anybody, to make people feel awful over a bad attempt at humor. So good for him, Rudy Gobert. Hopefully, accolade after accolade will help to change this narrative about him and about that ugly singular moment in his career. But as you point out, Shannon, pretty quietly, when people think of great players in the NBA, they don't, I don't think Rudy Gobert's name comes up until you go through like 15 or 20 players. And 3-time defensive player of the year, as you mentioned, only 4 others have ever done it in NBA history. That is quite a stratosphere in the NBA. And now in an era where there's not a lot of defense played in the jacket up from 3-point country NBA, Rudy Gobert, it's nice to see a guy committed to defense and performing very well defensively in the NBA.
Does this mean he gets into the Hall of Fame?
I think so. It's a great point.
You're saying that's what get J.J. Watt, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, is going to the NFL Hall of Fame. Now, the difference being J.J. Watt is a perennial name. Everyone knows him. He's in all the commercials.
Yeah.
He's the face of a franchise. He's the face of a new franchise that he just landed at. But you don't have those same thoughts when you think of Rudy Gobert. I think everyone will probably always remember the touching of the microphones before they think, oh yeah, he's got like 3 big awards.
I'm looking at, and I don't have the list. I've got the full list of winners. So I can see that Dennis Rodman won it multiple times. I'm just trying to think what fraternity
I think
Rudy Gobert is in right now. Dikembe Mutombo. Okay, Mutombo won it 3 times. Ben Wallace 3 times. And we just saw Ben Wallace is getting into the Hall of Fame. We just found that out for next year. And some people questioned that. So, okay, Dikembe Mutombo, Ben Wallace, Dennis Rodman. See, Sidney Moncrief won it twice. Michael Jordan won it once. See, I think when you're in that rarefied air, granted, offense and points get all the attention, but it's a 2-way game in the NBA. And there are still some dinosaurs out there like Greg Popovich who preach defense first. And I still believe, and if you look at the NBA and the way the NBA game changes in the playoffs, refs let a lot of fouls that might get called in the regular season go. I still believe the old adage, defense wins championships, continues to be a big deal. So I think Rudy Gobert, just right now, if his career ended, I think with those 3 defensive player of the year wins, I think he goes to the Hall of Fame. He's a 2-time NBA All-Star. He's a 5-time NBA all defensive first team. He led the NBA in blocks in 2017. So yeah. And hey, Bill Schoening, who was on the show yesterday, he's picking Utah versus Philadelphia in the NBA Finals. Yeah. Before we finish out July, Rudy Gobert could add an NBA championship to his resume.
Well, and you mentioned defense wins championships. 2008, Kevin Garnett, who just went into the Hall of Fame, was your defensive player of the year in 2008. Boston Celtics win championship.
Ooh.
So the case is strong for him.
Yeah, that would be interesting to correlate. Now Giannis won it last year, and we know he didn't win a championship. So Rudy Gobert has won 3 of the last 4 years. Giannis won it last year.
Only 28.
My goodness, yeah. Our good friend Kawhi Leonard won back-to-back as a Spur in 14-15 and 15-16. He won back-to-back Defensive Players of the Year. Dwight Howard won 3 in a row at one time. Dwight Howard now a backup on the Philadelphia 76ers. So very, very interesting. Going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
High five to you, Rudy.
Woo! High five to Rudy Gobert. Now, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners who joins us on Facebook Live. His name is Eric Winchester. Eric Winchester gets a credit as a producer on the show today because he sent us an interesting list. We were talking about Shannon LeBron James changing his number. This was a story yesterday from number 23 back to number 6, which he wore at Miami and has worn for Team USA. Eric Winchester sent us the list not only of the current top-selling NBA jerseys, but also the top-selling, most popular NBA teams in terms of all merchandise sales. Now, most selling jerseys in the NBA, no surprise, LeBron James jersey sells at number 1 in the NBA. Shannon, do you know who has the second most selling jersey right now in the NBA?
I mean, as a Mavs fan, I want to say Luka.
You can say that. Do you want to say that? Do you want to say Luka? Is that your final answer?
Yeah, he's the future. Yes.
Boom! You're right. That surprises me. Luka Doncic has the second most selling jersey in the NBA. And the next two I would have thought would have been ahead of Luka. Number 3, Kevin Durant. Number 4, Steph Curry. You know, if Curry was number 1 right now, I know everybody loves Curry. Kids especially love Curry. They see like he's a cuddly teddy bear or something. So if Curry was number 1 right now, I'd believe it. But Curry's Luka, more jersey sales than anybody but LeBron in the NBA.
I think he has more international flair than Durant and Curry.
Ah, that's a big deal.
I would say that has helped him out.
Okay. I would believe that. So just more interesting names. So there's your top 5. LeBron, Luka, Durant at 3, Steph at 4, Giannis at 5. Rounding out the top 10, starting at 6, Kyrie Irving, then Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum at number 8. He doesn't jump out on my radar. James Harden at number 9. And Zion Williamson, the 10th most selling jersey. I like that Kawhi's not in the top 10, Shannon. Not that I'm bitter. Kawhi is number 13.
Yeah, people probably, I would assume, know that he probably isn't for long with the Clippers.
Yeah.
You know?
At number 14, Trae Young. I got a feeling Trae Young's jersey sales are about to ascend.
Yeah, especially like the Hawks have pretty cool uniforms.
True.
Like the black with the hints of like the neon yellow green. Those are pretty cool.
Well, and they've got a black jersey with MLK on it, which I think is so cool. Because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with ties to Atlanta and Georgia. When I saw them roll, it's like, all right, that's way cool. When you got, especially you roll those out on MLK Day, that's way cool. Atlanta. So all right. Now, Shannon, the most popular teams in terms of merchandise. So we're talking hats, T-shirts, buttons, posters, pennants, everything. Who do you think is the most popular team in the NBA in terms of merchandise sales right now?
Well, when you went down that list of the top jerseys, I believe I heard at least 2 Brooklyn Nets on there, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Durant and Kyrie. So I would follow suit with that.
So you're very close. The Brooklyn Nets are number 2. Okay. Number 1, I guess, still the Lakers. I guess the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's hard to unseat someone or a team that just is a. Go ahead.
And they just won a championship like a year
ago.
Right? They have all of that new influx of goods.
Well, and see, here's my deal. And all right, I'll give you the top 5. Then I want to talk Brooklyn Nets with you for a second. Lakers number 1. You are correct. Brooklyn Nets number 2. They're big. Number 3, Golden State Warriors. You mentioned championships, all those residual championships. A lot of Warriors fans out there. Number 4, the Celtics. And number 5, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Luka at number 2 overall. Your Mavericks are number 8 on the list. But I'm amazed, Shannon. Right now, the Brooklyn Nets, number 2 in merchandise sales. 2 years ago, nobody gave a rat's you know what about the Brooklyn Nets. I just think fans are such bandwagoners, Now that the Nets have a big three, now that everybody's saying the Brooklyn Nets are going to win the title, it's like, oh yeah, man, get me some Brooklyn Nets merchandise. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. You weren't a year ago. You weren't 2 years ago. You bandwagon scumbag. I'm just saying.
I think in the case of the NBA, in more so than like the NFL, where I think people are more tied to the actual team. I think people are more tied to players in the NBA than they are teams, especially when you think of, there's 82 games a year.
Yeah.
It's easier to keep track of a player sometimes than a team. And people love LeBron, obviously, and they
Yeah.
love Steph Curry. And I think the same argument could have happened with Golden State. I mean, you mentioned them in the top 5 of team sale stuff, and who were they before that championship run?
But still,
I get it. And you have Jay-Z and Beyonce sitting courtside at like every other Brooklyn Nets game, and the
Okay.
world will follow Beyonce with whatever she does.
Yeah, but I think their big three are notoriously not that likable. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving.
But
So.
together.
Oh, yeah. Synergy, baby. Yep. All right. Little Eagles for you. Life in the Fast Lane. A song about Lane Kiffin. No, I'm just kidding. Coming up, 8 o'clock hour, lots more to talk about. NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, college sports, an ugly story coming out of the University of Michigan. We'll talk about all of that. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. St. Louis Cardinals fan Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist. I'm Chris. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Jason Paniagua. I know. We need to bring sports poetry back. I will try to bring that back. I just have to sit down and sit by a lake and write some poetry. Some sports poetry. Some Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, there's no music under it, is it? Okay, thank you.
Dave, I'm going to record a couple spots here, so just letting you know about the mic. Thank you, sir. All right. Let me bang this out. I need that. I need this. I got to do 3 of these, right? Okay, here we go. All right. I've got to edit some audio here real quick. Let me see. Let's do this. Okay, I saved that. Correct. All right. Man, so many great events going on in Austin. Chris Duel here. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, do it with a Bud Light. Where there's fun, there's a Bud Light there. Whether you see Jack Ingram or Blue October at the Hotspot and Q2 Stadium coming up, it's the home opener for Austin FC against the San Jose Earthquakes. Enjoy with a delicious Bud Light. Grab yourself one. Bud Light, please enjoy responsibly. Hey, Chris here. So many great things to do in Austin, and I say do it with a Bud Light. The clean, crisp taste of Bud Light. Great events coming up. Jack Ingram and Blue October coming to the hotspot, and it's almost here. Austin FC versus the San Jose Earthquakes at Q2 Stadium on June 19th. Go check out all the great fun and enjoy them all with a Bud Light. Bud Light, grab yourself one, and please enjoy responsibly. So many great events around Austin in the coming days. Enjoy, and I say enjoy with a Bud Light. Whether you're checking out the Round Rock Express at Dell Diamond or Jack Ingram or Blue October at the Hotspot, and June 19th, it's the home opener for Austin FC against the San Jose Earthquakes at Q2 Stadium. All of them a great time, and all of them just even better with a Bud Light. Grab yourself a Bud Light, and always remember, please enjoy responsibly. Good morning, Beth Settle. How are you this morning, Beth? Welcome in. Here we come.
This is the Chris Duel Show. Now, Chris Duel.
Welcome in on a throwback Thursday, beginning of the weekend, beginning of our weekend. We start the weekend on a Thursday because we can, because we should, because we just do. And we invite you to enjoy the weekend with us. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Lots going on in the world of sports, and we are talking all about it, whether it's the NBA playoffs. We talked about Rudy Gobert winning NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Talked about that in the previous hour. That was just the day after we found out that Nikola Jokic won MVP. Now, that didn't really help Nikola's Denver Nuggets last night, as the Phoenix Suns all over the Nuggets. They win by 25. Phoenix 123, Denver 98. Jokic did his part, scored 24 points, had 13 rebounds, but Phoenix has now won 5 straight playoff games, 3 to close out the Lakers, 2 now to take a commanding 2-0 lead in this series against the Nuggets. Chris Paul, a double-double last night, 17 points, 15 rebounds for him. Tonight, Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz will host Kawhi Leonard and the LA Clippers. Utah up. Kawhi just keeps laughing all the way to the graveyard, I hope. Utah up 1-0 in that series. That's the late game. That's at 9 o'clock on ESPN. The early game at 6:30. Brooklyn trying to all but destroy the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee, Shannon, in a must-win situation. I mean, if you're going to go down 3-0, first of all, in any sport, baseball, NBA, hockey, when you're down 0-3, I think other than the Boston Red Sox against the New York Yankees many years ago, almost nobody comes back from an 0-3 deficit. And Shannon, we talked about Coach Mike Budenholzer of the Milwaukee Bucks on the hot seat. If he loses this series, and he's probably going to lose this series to the Brooklyn Nets, I think he's in trouble. Expectations are high in Milwaukee. But if he's swept, you win all of those games. You've got Giannis. If you're swept by the Brooklyn Nets, I got to believe the fan base and probably people in that front office are going to be clamoring for Coach Bud's head.
I kind of look at Milwaukee in the way that I was looking at the Mavericks, and that we have Luka and we have Giannis, and they are superstars and they are incredible, but they cannot do it all. That one person has little to no help. And when you're going up a team like Brooklyn, where you have those 3 superstars, and I know Harden hasn't been playing because of his hamstring, you still have 2 superstars as well as a supporting cast. Blake Griffin looks like the old Blake Griffin that, prior to becoming a Piston, he's been dunking on everybody. They also, along with those superstars, have guys who are stepping up, and I don't know the Bucks what the answer is when your role players, PJ Tucker, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, like they're not doing anything to help Giannis, and Giannis, as great of a superstar he is, cannot do it all by himself. And I
Yeah.
know people are like, "Oh, home court advantage, like they'll be able to get at least one." I'm like, "Okay, great. They're going to get at least one. One ain't going to win you 4
No.
though." And I
Yeah.
think they're done.
Yeah, I think this goes 5 at best. I think for Mike Budenholzer, and here in San Antonio, we've known Mike Budenholzer. We kind of saw him grow up. He came in as a video room guy, video coordinator for the Spurs, spent 2 years in the video room before Pop brought him over to the bench to be an assistant coach. He worked his way up to be the lead assistant for Greg Popovich, spent 17 years as an assistant in San Antonio. Then he got a gig as head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. Went okay in Atlanta, nothing special, some good years, some bad years in Atlanta. Then he got this Milwaukee gig, and it was almost like the prescription that Greg Popovich had in San Antonio. Pop attributes the Spurs' incredible success to Tim Duncan. Pop says, if I didn't have Tim Duncan, and if Tim Duncan didn't buy into this system, it wouldn't have happened. It almost looked for Mike Budenholzer like that template was there in Milwaukee. Get an incredible transcendent big man, in this case Giannis Antetokounmpo, and ride that guy, get some pieces around him. But as you've documented, Shannon, the pieces aren't like a Manu Ginobili and a Tony Parker. We've talked about Chris Middleton. I think he's kind of overrated. He's all right, but he's not really a number 2. He's not a Robin to your Batman. And the way the Brooklyn Nets have been playing defense against Milwaukee, and it's the same way that I heard an interview yesterday with Nick Nurse, the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. When Toronto with Kawhi beat Milwaukee in the playoffs, and that year Milwaukee had the better record in the regular season and home court advantage. But what you do, and this is what Brooklyn is doing, you double team Giannis. And you dare other people to beat you. When Giannis gets the ball, 2 players converge on Giannis, and he's not going to shoot when he's double teamed. He's going to kick it out to a Drew Holiday, to a Chris Middleton, to a Bryn Forbes, and that dude has to hit a shot. And typically has to hit a 3-point shot, and they're not doing it. So it is, and as we've talked about Mike Budenholzer, who may lose his job over the multi-year ineffectiveness in the playoffs of the Milwaukee Bucks, at least this season, Shannon, I think it's a little unfair, even though you did document no James Harden yet in this series with a hamstring injury, which is smart of Doc Rivers, as long as Brooklyn can dominate Milwaukee, rest James Harden for later in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference Finals and then maybe the finals. But I think in the final analysis, I think Milwaukee either loses this 4-0 or they lose it 4-1, and Brooklyn closes it out in a game 5 at Brooklyn if Milwaukee can split at home. But I think it's a little unfair this season because you're going up against a super team and a buzzsaw. And you mentioned Blake Griffin. We all talk about the big 3 in Brooklyn. Now you've got Blake Griffin playing like an all-star like he used to play, which makes this team all the better.
The only thing I think that can save this man's job is pushing the narrative and pushing it hard that it is hard to get superstars to come to a place like Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And, Antonio Daniels, who we've had, right? I mean, he's not a fan of that narrative as a, the voice of New Orleans. He would argue that, anywhere is a great place to play when you're in the NBA. And I think that's accurate, but the narrative still exists.
Yeah.
And so I think their best chance of keeping the front office and the coaching staff the way it is now is saying, look, Giannis signed that long-term deal. He's here to stay. Kawhi, whoever we can get, because it's slim pickings this offseason, come join him. You're all it takes. Look how good we are with just one guy.
Yeah.
But when David meets the 3 Goliaths, like that, then that's too much. We can't handle that. One more guy. You could be the key. You could fix it. Kawhi, you could you could have another ring.
Ooh. Kawhi might be looking. Kawhi's a free agent this year. He may be
Right.
looking.
And you mentioned the head case he is. How much of a head case can he be when he's in a place like Milwaukee?
Yeah. True.
I don't know what the nightlife is like, but I can't imagine it's similar to a Miami or an LA.
No. And Kawhi not uniquely, but rarely, he's a rare bird in the NBA in that nightlife is not that big of a deal. For a lot of these players, I've heard Draymond Green, when he rolls into town, first thing he's looking for is a hot strip club. Apparently there's this famous strip club in LA, and whenever the Warriors are playing the Lakers or the Clippers, you can go to this strip club and you'll see half of the Golden State Warriors led by Draymond Green hanging out at the strip club. On a certain level, I kind of get it, although not really, but I kind of get it. You're a 20-something millionaire, multimillionaire as an NBA player. And do you want to live in Milwaukee? And you mentioned the nightlife in Milwaukee. And I mean, you can even say that about San Antonio.
And I'm not even like specifically nightlife, just
sure.
The city in general.
Yeah. But
tell me what there is to do.
But see, I think nightlife is important to 80% of the NBA players. I really do. Sadly. And maybe even not sadly. They've earned this. They've played hoop their whole life. They're the best on the planet Earth. They're an average of like 25 years old, and they want to party in their off hours. And for a year plus in 2020, everybody was locked down by COVID. So probably young 20-something millionaires have even more cabin fever now than they've ever had. But what I wonder about Milwaukee, Shannon, is, and you're right, the mission is bring in complementary stars. You need either a big two, but we're now finding out you need a big three, probably, if you're going to win a championship. You had a big three at Golden State. You had a big two at the Lakers, and they won in an unusual year last year. But, LeBron had the big three in Miami. He had a big three in Cleveland. Golden State had a big three, and now Brooklyn has a big three. You probably need a big three. So here's what I'm wondering about Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer, and I've said this, he's a nice guy. He's obviously a very good NBA coach. He had a great training of 17 years under Pop in San Antonio. But as you described, Shannon, you need to, other than playing with Giannis, it would probably be good to go play for a coach as well. It's like, I'm a 24-year-old budding NBA superstar. What coach do I want to play for in Milwaukee with Giannis? Is it Mike Budenholzer? I've said before, Mike Budenholzer as a tactician, as a high basketball IQ, and as a student of the game, he's a very, very talented coach. Two things I don't see from Mike Budenholzer are fire or gravitas, which obviously Pop has. I think an Eric Spoelstra in Miami, by virtue of his longevity, his championships, I think he's got it. Part of what Milwaukee might be looking to do, I think Brad Stevens had it. Some people say one of the reasons Boston gobbled up Brad Stevens and threw a bunch of money at him to move him into the front office, replacing Danny Ainge, was a team like Milwaukee could say, hey, we're going to blow out Mike Budenholzer and we're going to throw a lot of money at Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens might be a guy you want to go play for in Milwaukee. I'm just wondering, and I feel bad about this because I like him, but I'm just wondering if moving forward, Mike Budenholzer is the kind of a guy who could broker a deal to get a really big-time player to come to Milwaukee. A number of years ago, when LaMarcus Aldridge was a big deal and was an NBA All-Star, Coach Greg Popovich famously, and he brought Tim over, and I think he brought Patty Mills and some others to have lunch in Beverly Hills with LaMarcus, and they talked LaMarcus into coming to San Antonio. Can Mike Budenholzer do that for the modern day equivalent of whoever LaMarcus Aldridge is out there who can help Giannis?
Yeah, all those points about, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, yesterday the Pacers announced they get rid of their coach after 1 year. And we're talking about the Nets, who have Steve Nash in year one. What do we know that Steve Nash has actually done? Because I could be the coach of the Brooklyn Nets.
True. Yeah. I think the only thing he's done, I think he has had a relationship with at least two of the three stars, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. I think they like him and they approved him, and that was the best thing he had going for himself.
And I think that's where we are in the NBA right now. What you mentioned, like people need to want to play for a coach. It's not so much about what you know, it's who you know, that kind of thing, because these coaches aren't necessarily like savants of the greatest basketball minds ever, but they have these great communication skills where they can convince guys to come play. So if he can convince somebody, I'm not saying it's got to be Kawhi. I don't think they can afford to trade for Damian Lillard, but if they can convince somebody, ideally a guard, to come in and pair up. I know they wouldn't be a big three, but I mean, you look at Brooklyn now, and one of their three is sidelined, and who knows when he'll be back. At this point, he's probably going to rest through the rest of this current run against Milwaukee. But I think that's the saving grace for him. And I don't know what those conversations are like behind the scenes, but should they go out 4-0, I that's the only way I see him staying there, is if he can somehow convince them that I can bring and then will bring somebody in to make them competitive once they actually get to the finals.
Yeah, and Shannon, you just brought this up, and it's a huge point in the NBA. It's what have you done for me lately? And you don't have a lot of time to make this happen. The Indiana Pacers yesterday fired their 1-year head coach, Nate Bjorkgren. Interesting name, Bjorkgren. Nate Bjorkgren, this was his only season. Things did not go well for Indiana, so they blew him out after 1 year. Indiana was 34-38. They even got into the play-in tournament. They earned the number 8 seed, and they lost the play-in against the Washington Wizards. So, you look at San Antonio, and San Antonio, it's like we were better this year than last year. Last year in the Orlando bubble, didn't even get into the play-in. This time we got the number 10 seed, got into the play-in against Memphis, lost a close one in Memphis, 100-96. But I think of somebody, Shannon, like Becky Hammon. You think of, all right, who is a coach on the cusp of becoming a head coach in the NBA? And we talk a lot about Becky Hammon, and you got to wonder in Milwaukee is if they blow out Mike Budenholzer, and Milwaukee about 2 years ago interviewed Becky Hammon for the general manager job. So the powers that be in Milwaukee have Becky Hammon on their radar, but we live in an NBA now. Greg Popovich has been around forever, like 23, 24 years now in San Antonio. He's in a different stratosphere. He can have a couple of bad years and it'll be okay. Nate Bjorkgren, no. And again, when Becky Hammon finally gets that head coaching job, and we know it's coming, we just don't know when or where, although we suspect it might be in San Antonio when Greg Popovich rides off into the sunset. Not only is she going to be under the pressure of performing very well in year one so that Nate Bjorkgren doesn't happen to her, but again, that whole carrying the mantle, and it's unfair, I know, but carrying the mantle of the first woman head coach in the NBA, there's going to be a ton of pressure and a ton of scrutiny based on that.
Well, in the case of Nate, that screams to me, because you mentioned like how they compared to the Spurs this year, right? And no one is necessarily calling for Popovich's head, right? But he's still a guy that players love to play for, no matter how the season ends. Whereas Nate, to me, that screams culture wasn't put into place. It wasn't one the players agreed on. It wasn't one the organization agreed on. Let's use you not making the playoffs as an excuse to oust you and bring in somebody who players want to play for. Because again, the Pacers, similar to Milwaukee. I mean, we saw PG-13 leave because he just didn't want to be there.
Yeah,
it's not a destination franchise. But I also agree with Becky. I my best hope for her is that she does get that Spurs job. Not that I think she needs an easy path or anything like that, but again, that the weight, that unnecessary weight that will just naturally be part of it because she is a woman, and the conversation we're having now about players wanting to play for you will probably be harder for her with an organization and guys who haven't already been there.
Yeah.
She needs to prove herself first, and it will be easier to do that with people who understand her already.
Yeah, she's already a part of this organization. This organization already embraces her, and these players already have played for her and embrace her.
Let them be the mouthpieces to say, no, you want to play for her.
Absolutely. Yeah. But more and more, and Shannon, again, going back to Steve Nash, the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, players have more power in the NBA than they've ever had before. I believe they have more power than NFL players, Major League Baseball players, or NHL players, certainly, and probably players in every level of hockey, soccer, including MLS and international soccer. More and more now, as these players form these super teams, if the players don't love you, you're in trouble. And again, one more, and this applies to Becky Hammon and the Spurs regarding Mike Budenholzer. If Mike Budenholzer is fired, we've seen this many, many times from Greg Popovich. He's very loyal. He did this with Monty Williams when Monty Williams had the tragedy in Oklahoma City when his wife was killed in a car accident, and he was just devastated. Pop gave Monty Williams, who had been a previous Spurs assistant and a previous Spurs player, Pop gave Monty Williams a job in the Spurs organization. Monty is very talented. It wasn't just charity. Monty did a great job, got back on his feet. Now he's the head coach of the Phoenix Suns, might win an NBA championship now. If Mike Budenholzer is fired by the Milwaukee Bucks, most people believe the first phone call he's going to get is from Greg Popovich saying, come on back to San Antonio, come back to the bench, stay here for a while until you make your next move. My question, if he comes back, Shannon, and then Pop leaves, do you hire 17-year Pop assistant, two-time NBA head coach at Atlanta and Milwaukee, multiple playoff qualifying head coach Mike Budenholzer? Do you hire him as the heir apparent to Greg Popovich in San Antonio, or do you hire Becky? Might Mike Budenholzer coming to San Antonio be a threat to the future of Becky Hammon?
I don't think Budenholzer comes back to San Antonio to not be the head coach. So unless that is a given that, okay, you'll serve your time on the bench and then it's yours, sign, ready, seal. I think, we already know of openings in the NBA right now. There's no one saying that if he gets ousted here at Milwaukee, that one of those spots isn't his.
Yeah. Anyway, very intriguing chess pieces could be moving around, and they continue to move around in the NBA. Nick Bjorkgren fired yesterday by Indiana. Mike Budenholzer may be on the clock, depending on what happens in this series. And tonight, as Milwaukee hosts the Brooklyn Nets at 6:30. Coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. If you think she's salty now, just wait till the Salty Shakedown. Also, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Just after 8 o'clock, our Dallas Cowboys correspondent and resident Tim Tebow hater. I give him a hard time about that, and I should. Tanner Carlson going to join us just after 8 o'clock. There's his official Tan the Monkey Man sound effect. Coming up as well, your phone calls if you want to jump in, 800-707-9760. St. Louis Cardinals fan Dave Ayler making the show go. She's Shannon. I'm Chris. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. All right. Wes Perkins, good morning. David Valles, good morning. Roger Salazar. Now, let's see. I'm going to grab coffee. Black Rifle coffee. Wes Perkins says, well, I turned 44 today. Wes Perkins, this is your birthday, dude. We're going to give you a birthday shout out on the radio without question. I turned 44 today. Man, I didn't think you were 44. You seem like mid-30s to me, which is good. That means when you're like 65, you'll seem 50. I still feel like a Toys R Us kid, even though my body thinks I'm 65. Yeah, Wes, as you get older, your body can't do things it used to do. It's like I wake up and my body like creaks and aches. And again, you don't feel like you feel like you can do everything you've always done. I like in 2015, I hadn't run a marathon in like 25 years. I used to run a lot of marathons in my 20s. So in 2015, I ran the rock and roll marathon in San Antonio. And my God, just my body compared to the 80s, it was unbelievable. It was the last one I'm going to, I pinched a nerve in my neck that ran all the way down my left arm. For 3 months, I had pain down my neck and into my arm after that race, just because of the pounding on the spine for 26.2 miles. So I said, all right, that's it. Homie's done with marathons. But it was fun, and it was worth it, and it's cool. Be right back. Coffee time. Yeah, Wes, we will include you in sports birthdays. $44. John Williams, I don't know the answer to that question. It's above my technical pay grade. I don't know. Let me see. I've got to do some emails here, if at all possible. Let's see. That is... All right, let's see here. Two. Welcome back to the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Her saltiness about to get a lot more salty in here with the Salty Shakedown moments away. Call your friends, round up the kiddies around the radio, the computer, the iPad, the smartphone, the smart device like Alexa for the Salty Shakedown that is coming up. Remember, wherever you listen to the show, you may be listening on AM 1300 The Zone in Austin. You may be listening out of Ticket 760 in San Antonio. You can get us anywhere on the face of this earth and probably in space on the iHeartRadio app. I do that through my Alexa device. You just say, Alexa, play AM 1300 The Zone, or Alexa, play Ticket 760. That's all I have to say on mine. They advise you to say, play that station on iHeartRadio or on the iHeartRadio app. And of course, the iHeartRadio app you get on your phone or wherever you want it. And surprisingly, for AM radio on the iHeartRadio app and on Alexa and your smart devices, it sounds crystal clear. It sounds very, very good, which I guess makes sense.
It even sounds better twice when you check out the podcast.
That's right.
On iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Spreaker, wherever.
Spreaker.
Podcast. And you can usually like speed it up a little bit.
Yes.
And I think it's fun to listen to podcasts like 1.5 times speed.
Yes. You get more information per minute.
And they're broken down by the hour. So you join us at 7 because you sleep in. Congrats to you, for one, for sleeping in. And 2, we got the 6 o'clock hour right there for you.
Yes. And we say a lot of things in the 6 o'clock hour that are inappropriate. So go check out that 6 o'clock and go, I'm not, my God, I can't believe Shannon said that in the 6 o'clock hour. So, yeah, because usually the coffee hasn't kicked in. So we're totally unfiltered in the 6 o'clock hour and we're a little cranky. You know, Shannon is always salty, but I'm a little cranky in the morning because my coffee hasn't kicked in yet. So, but yeah, listen in. There is a podcast, and as Shannon mentions, it's broken down by the hour. So if you missed anything, you just say, hey, I missed that hour. Let me check it out. And if you ever hear something, you go, did I hear that right? You can go back and check it out, which is way, way cool. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, just after 8 o'clock, we will check in with Tanner Carlson, his latest data or data, whichever you say, data or data. I say data, you say data. Latest information on the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll also talk some NFL with him. Apparently, Jordan Love, the current quarterback who's playing at OTAs for the Green Bay Packers, apparently he looked god-awful 2 days ago, the first day of OTAs, organized training activities for the Green Bay Packers. But apparently yesterday, Jordan Love looked sharp. So who knows? Aaron Rodgers. Oh, and we're going to have to get into it. We'll get into it. I want to make sure it's not part of the shakedown. I don't think it is. We'll mention it later. There's something else in the NFL I want to get into. It could be part of the salty shakedown. I'm not sure. We're about to find out in just a few seconds. Before the salty shakedown, we're going to bring you today's sports birthdays and this day in sports history. June 10th, 1974, at the Houston Astrodome, Mike Schmidt of the Philadelphia Phillies hits a ball so high it goes all the way up to the roof of the Houston Astrodome and clangs off the public address speaker up in the ceiling of the Houston Astrodome. Not exactly a statistical event in sports history, but kind of interesting. If you were there, kind of a big deal. On this day in 1979, the French Open, Chris Everett dominates Wendy Turnbull of Australia 6-2, 6-0 for Chris Everett's third French singles crown. Chris Everett, she was pretty good. Used to date Jimmy Connors. Did they get married? No, I think they were just a thing. Jimmy Connors was a men's tennis player and Chris Everett a women's tennis. So they were like the it couple. She was like one of the best in women's tennis. He was one of the best in men's tennis, and they were a thing back in the day. This day in 1981, Pete Rose ties Stan Musial's National League record of 3,630 hits. Young toddler Dave Ayler must have been very upset because Stan Musial was a St. Louis Cardinal. Dave, how old were you in 1981? I'm guessing 11 is my... Whoa, I nailed it. 11-year-old Dave Ayler cried in his Fruit Loops on this day in 1981 as Pete Rose beat Stan Musial's record for most hits in National League history. And finally, on this day in 1995, again, the French Open. Well, it was fresh too. The French Open, Steffi Graf beats Arantxa Sanchez Vicario 7-5, 4-6, 6-0 with a pivotal 32-point game in the third set. It was Steffi Graf's fourth French Open title. I knew Steffi Graf was good. I didn't know she won 4 French Opens. She was real good. That's this day in sports history. I got 4 sports birthdays for you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, George. Thank you, Ringo, for the music. That's right. I am wearing my Beatles t-shirt on Throwback Thursday. I kind of like the Beatles. Beatles love, Kawhi, not so much. I'm glad Kawhi wasn't a Beatle. He wouldn't show up for recording. He'd take time off. Load management. No load management for John Lennon. Born on this day in 1933, American football coach for the Patriots, for the Oklahoma Sooners, for the University of Colorado, Chuck Fairbanks. Born on this day in 1933. He coached the Patriots from 73 to 78. He coached the Oklahoma Sooners from 67 to 72. He coached the Colorado Buffaloes for 2 years from 79 to 81. Chuck Fairbanks was born in Detroit, Michigan. He died in 2013. Born on this day in 1951. He is 70 years old. I can't believe it. NFL Hall of Fame quarterback and uncle of our sometimes soundscape stylist Jeremy Fouts, Dan Fouts, 70 years old today. Now, Shannon, you can't relate to this because you're very young, but Dave Ayler, did you see Dan Fouts play? Were you alive and conscious of number 14, Dan Fouts, playing for the San Diego Chargers? He had a great beard. Yes. Well, see, that dude is now 70. You saw him play. I saw him play, and he's now 70. That means you and I are old, Dave Ayler. I'm just saying, Dan Fouts is 70. That's crazy. Born on this day in 1982, Tara Lipinski, figure skater, 1997 world champion, Tara Lipinski, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Happy birthday, Tara. And finally, sports birthday because he's one of the best sports talk radio callers, participants. We've had him in the studio. We've had him on Spurs React in studio after the games. He's great on Spurs podcasts. In fact, starting his own podcast this summer, our good friend Wesley Perkins, who not only is a sports talk golden god, but the greatest band director in the history of San Antonio high schools. Take that, Leland B. Schultz, who was my band director at Patton F. I was a crappy saxophone player back in middle school. Happy birthday, Wes Perkins. Wes turns 44 today. He's a lot younger than Dan Fouts, who is 70. All right, here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you've been waiting for it. The wait is over. Gather around the radio. If you're driving, both hands on the wheel, take a deep breath, chant your mantra. Here it is, your daily salty shakedown.
Earlier in the week, we discussed the 76ers as well as their GM getting fined for tampering from the GM reposting an Instagram photo that Steph had shared and said, join him. And reference to his brother, who, of course, plays for the 76ers. Well, now Pat Riley is being fined after an appearance on the Dan Le Batard show, where in reference to LeBron, he said, I would leave a key under the doormat if he would call and let me know he is coming. That key has since rusted because he went on to talk about how, the key's always been there for LeBron, but he doesn't believe he's actually going to come back. But if he would, he'd put out a shiny new one. And now the NBA, they even released a statement saying, we are fining him $25,000 for this comment. It is considered tampering. I've never read the rules of tampering, but in the digital age that we're in, it seems like they can nitpick here and there and everywhere for what could be considered tampering. This one, it's rough. I mean, he was on a talk show. Dan Le Batard even tweeted that he misheard the question. That wasn't what he was even really answering. He didn't openly say, hey, LeBron, come back home to Miami. Also, I don't think it's crazy for anyone to say, well, if LeBron was willing to come, we'd welcome him with open arms. It's LeBron James.
Yes.
And even though he's older, he is still one of the best and greatest players, and a guy who we talked about earlier, someone needs to come play with Giannis. LeBron is known for bringing guys with him and then bringing players up who are already on the team around him. I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's worth a $25,000 fine. Chris, Dan Le Batard offered to pay the fine. He even asked for his show sponsor to help pay the fine. I don't think Pat Riley needs that help, but I think the offer is great. I wouldn't make the same offer though if it happened on our show. I'm sorry.
Well, we'd ask for our sponsors to pay for it. We wouldn't ask for you to pay for it. We'd ask for sponsors.
Salary for
it. Right. Exactly. That's $25,000. That's a 2-year radio salary right there, pretty much. You make a great point, Shannon. For the best point, anybody would take LeBron James. So if you're going to be in an interview and candidly, if you're Pop or if you're Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks, hey, would you like LeBron to join Luka? Hell yes, I would. What's he going to say? I think maybe, and here we are, like twice in a week, Shannon, maybe these tampering rules are archaic, as you point out, in the era of social media and in the information age where a lot of people are being interviewed and executives are being interviewed more than they used to be in the NBA and across sports. Maybe it's like, everybody wants everybody. I think maybe tampering, maybe it's time to revisit these. And oh, by the way, and as you say, first of all, Dan Le Batard, nice gesture, offering to pay $25,000. 25 is chump change for Pat Riley. I'll bet you Pat Riley has had dinner at Spago's or someplace, and the bill's been probably more than $25,000 for Pat Riley.
Totally tips $25,000
yes.
on the reg. All right, let's move into the NFL. Ryan Fitzpatrick now on his 9th team with the Washington football team, and because he's now back in the NFC East, it's hard for me to like him again. But nonetheless, they are at OTAs, and he, along with some other players, were part of, they kind of did for social media, it's almost like a back to school photo where they were all holding a chalkboard and it said, my name is, and this is my X year, and these are my friends, and this is what I like. and all the rookies looked happy and like excited to be there. Oh my God, my dreams come true. And he looked like, do I really have to take this picture? Well, yesterday he comes off the practice field, all smiles, walking into the camera, and there is a cicada that he is happily
Oh,
sporting in his beard
oh man.
live, making the noise like just it's cicada season. Again, we talked about mosquitoes yesterday, cicadas today. It's another thing I hate about the summer. I don't like the noise. I don't like they're nasty. Usually you see them, they're like crustaceans at the time I finally see them, right? They're in the pool and ugh. But how nasty, Ryan Fitzpatrick, you nasty, nasty man. Don't be proud of that. Don't be proud of that. Chris, you wouldn't allow that to happen, would you? You would
No.
immediately knock that thing out of your beard.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Dave mentioned Dan Fouts' beard. I've got beard envy when it comes to Ryan Fitzpatrick and Dan Fouts. But it's so weird, this whole cicada thing. Every 17 years, they peak. So we're at the peak of the cicada. Yesterday, I saw on the tarmac, I think at Andrews Air Force Base, the president, Joe Biden, is talking on a camera, and a cicada came and jumped on his neck, and he had to brush it off. So cicadas are everywhere. But yeah, no, if a cicada lands on you, I totally agree with you, Shannon. They're gross. They're disgusting. Get them away from me. I'm certainly not allowing a cicada to hang out in my beard, much less I'm not going to smile and celebrate that.
Yeah. And I don't know about you. Do you refer to them as locusts? Because that's typically what I refer
When
to
I was a kid, they were locusts.
Okay,
Yeah, they were.
right.
We never said cicada. We said locust.
The headlines are all calling them cicadas for this particular story. All right, keeping with the NFL, and I'm sure we'll get into this more with Tanner Carlson about Dak Prescott saying he has buried his injury. He is moving on from it, and he wants everyone else to do the same. Well, that was the big story in the morning, but the big story coming in the afternoon is that he has left Adidas. He, of course, signed with Adidas after being drafted. I believe they are also a Mississippi State brand as well. He has now landed with Jordan. So he is not only the highest paid NFL player as part of the Jordan brand, he's also the only quarterback. Other NFL players on that roster include Stephon Diggs, Bucks linebacker Devin White, Browns wideout Jarvis Landry, and new rookie player number 4 Kyle Pitts, who is sure to make an impact. People took notice that Dak was not sporting Adidas at workouts with the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, most notably when he posted that picture where everyone was like, ooh, look at that ankle on his Instagram. He was wearing Jordans. He has now signed a 5-year deal with Jordan Brand. I think it's great for Dak. I do love me some Adidas. That's just like the shoe that I wear. I'm wearing some right now. So I'm sad for that, that I won't get like any cool cowboy-like Adidas coming from Dak. But I think it's great for him. Everyone's who's not on Team Dak with the contract negotiations earlier in the year, we're all saying he doesn't need all that cowboy money. He's got all this endorsement money. Like, no, let this guy get his bread, okay? He plays great football. He should get paid great football money. He's a great ambassador and partner for, he's got a mattress. He's like Campbell's Chunky Soup. I think he does yogurt. Now he's Jordan Brand. He and Michael Jordan teaming up. Chris, are we going to see Michael Jordan at Cowboys games now?
That would be cool. And when you said that, Shannon, there's a certain allure when Jordan, just Michael Jordan Brand, to be associated with Michael Jordan, and in this case, Jordan shoes is huge. And everything you say, I agree. Let this man have his money. Let him make all this money, be associated with all these brands. But Shannon, as we've said, Dak, your one job as quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Roger did it twice. Troy did it 3 times. Romo didn't do it. You must deliver a Super Bowl championship or more unto us, or when it's all over, we're not gonna love you as much as we love you right now.
Well, and I think it's interesting, the injury he had, right? That it was a leg injury and he was wearing Adidas. Luckily, that's not part of the conversation, but it is like when you think of Zion, right? And in that incredible game where the shoe broke, those were Nikes. Of course, Jordan, an extension of the Nike brand, but he ended up signing with Jordan when he went to the NBA, and now Dak with Jordan. So let's hope that those shoes are sturdy. And it'd be super interesting to see what they do. Because when you think of Jordan, I think you automatically go to basketball and streetwear. and not so much the NFL. So this could change the game for the Jordan brand, having a guy like Dak Prescott, quarterback for America's team, as part of the Jordan brand. There you have it, today's Salty Shakedown.
Another spectacular Salty Shakedown. Shannon, thank you so much. Will Tanner Carlson be wearing Jordans when he comes into the studio? And will he leave his Tebow hatred at the door? Coming up on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Wes, Danny White, man. And a very, very, very good quarterback. In fact, perhaps an outstanding quarterback. Yes. In fact, I see your note on Deshaun Watson. In fact, I just saw it, Shannon. Maybe we'll bring that up with Tanner as well, since it's NFL. Okay, now I need to email these files. All right, where did I put that? There it is. Okay, now. I did just record brown spots. Wanted me to let you know he emailed. Yeah, I did, Shannon. There was just a link, so I just kind of figured it out from the link. But yeah, there was no actual script. Michelle Johnson from Marysville, Kansas, welcome. Fred Robert Casares, Robert Almarez, welcome in. Jason Paniagua, Tanner Carlson about to come in with his hatred of Tim Tebow. Irrational hatred. How's life?
Oh, life is going well.
Good.
God, I had such a bad crick in my neck yesterday. I was moving around like a
Oh, no.
like just shoulders. I wasn't moving my neck at all yesterday.
Yeah.
I spent the whole day basically with a heating pack on, but
Better today?
much better today.
Good.
Much better today. And I went to my first in-person media thing yesterday.
Wow.
At Santikos, they launched their new their brew, their new lager or whatever. So I covered that yesterday. But
So they've got their own Santikos beer at their theater.
They joined with Freetail.
Okay.
And so Freetail is the one who brewed it, but it's going to be sold at Santikos locations.
Okay.
But yeah, so I did that yesterday, but that was like I was talking to the guy who I was interviewing there. I was like, man, since I've been in San Antonio, this is my first in-person media gathering.
That is crazy.
Which is awesome. Super cool.
And as you say that, last time you were here, and I'm going to make myself another note and try to get on it today. Bruce Davidson with the mayor. Cool. I tend to contact him through Twitter. That's just kind of how it worked over the years.
Yeah.
So what I'll probably do is just send a joint Twitter message to him and to you.
Okay.
And introduce you to him.
That works.
And he's usually real good.
Yeah, that works.
And I know Dylan Emery, that's how Dylan originally got in touch with the mayor. I put him in touch with Bruce. And then so he's been on Dylan's show a few times.
Right.
So, okay, Bruce. So Cowboys, Dak, Shannon was just talking about Dak goes to the Jordan brand.
Yeah.
Any other?
We signed Parsons.
Okay.
But other than that,
we may get into Deshaun Watson. Jordan Love apparently looking better at OTAs in Green Bay.
We'll see. But yeah, we can do that. And then I don't think we talked. I know the Julio news is kind of old anyway. So, but yeah, we can just kind of talk a little Cowboys. And I know there was kind of one thing, the fact that we haven't really touched on the defensive line, and it's going to be all new faces this year.
Okay,
a lot of new faces this year on the defensive line between draft picks and free agency. Yeah, we can definitely talk Dak, and he's going to be a trillionaire before the season's over.
Yeah.
He's going to have more money than Bezos by the end of this.
This is the Chris Duel Show. You know the day is stars and night. Night even today. Now, Chris Duel.
Throwback Thursday, June 10th. It's the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney on a big day in the world of sports on a bunch of levels, including 2 NBA games tonight. There was just one last night, which was weird. Throughout these playoffs, there's usually been multiple games. Phoenix beat Denver last night, 123-98. 2 games tonight. Your early game at 6:30. Brooklyn Nets at Milwaukee. We've been talking about it with Shannon about how Mike Budenholzer, the head coach of the Bucks, seeming to be on the hot seat. And if Brooklyn wins tonight, they take a 3-0 lead. Almost nobody ever in any sport comes back from down 0-3 in a 7-game series. Late game tonight at 9, Utah Jazz taking on the LA Clippers. But we will probably dive mainly into pro football, as we should at this moment, as we are joined in studio by the lovely and talented Tanner Carlson, among other things, a reporter at 1200 WOAI in San Antonio, play-by-play, football play-by-play guy, Dallas Cowboys analyst, among other things. And maybe, Tanner, your next thing on your resume might be hurricane 24-hour coverage anchor as a hurricane is bearing down upon the Gulf of Mexico. And 1200 WOAI, obviously a hub for multiple news talk stations in multiple states around the Gulf of Mexico. And you may be forced into 24/7 hurricane coverage is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I will likely be thrown into that mix at some point in time, especially if this thing develops into something serious. But yeah, we cover with the Louisiana coast, and so we know their troubles with hurricanes, especially last year. Last year was the busiest hurricane season I've ever been a part of. It was actually my first hurricane season I'd ever been a part of, but it was also the busiest. And so it seemed like there was a new storm coming in every single week. So it's that time of year. So let's bunker down and get ready to go for it, I guess, again.
Absolutely. We will be on hurricane watch on the news talk side. Of course, here it's the sports talk side. And Tanner, we talked to you a lot about the Dallas Cowboys. You are, and I mean this respectfully and affectionately, you are a Dallas Cowboys geek.
Yeah.
You're a nerd. You came in here on Tuesday analyzing the contracts of the Dallas Cowboys. When there's an NFL draft, you go through every single pick of every single team, which is great for us because we learn a lot that we might not have otherwise considered. Shannon brought this up in the previous segment. Dak Prescott shifting from the Adidas brand to the Jordan brand of shoe wear. Are you excited about this? Is this a big deal to you?
It's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal for Dak. I mean, Dak's going to be a trillionaire. He's going to be making more money than Jeff Bezos by the time this season's over if he continues on this track that he's on with signing deals and contracts. And marketing himself off the football field. Will probably be making more money off the field than he will be even on the field. And he's one of the highest paid players on the field. So it's exciting for Dak. It doesn't really mean anything for the Cowboys. It doesn't really mean anything for anybody else other than Dak and the Jordan brand. But, I do think it's interesting that the Jordan brand is starting to kind of push itself into the football world. We've seen obviously North Carolina, they're obviously Jordan brand, but you see Michigan, you see these other teams. I think there was a SEC team, I'm not mistaken, that was sponsored by Jordan this year. So, and now you're getting Dak Prescott, who's definitely far and away the most high profile player that you have representing your brand. So Jordan wins, Dak wins, so it's just kind of one of those things. But I think it's interesting that the Jordan brand is kind of integrating and pushing itself into the football world.
Shannon, what do you think about that? I mean, it makes total sense for Jordan brand. It's more markets if you can expand, right, and it's already a big deal. But do they have any business being in football?
Well, like I said, and Tanner mentions there, you think of Jordan, you think of basketball shoes and streetwear and the NBA. And so for them to do this, I mean, they know the NFL leads in the US anyway. I mean, the NBA has an incredible international audience. The NFL is growing, right? They're trying to get a game going in Germany every year. So I think Jordan, being the smart businessman he is, which we know he is making the smartest move. And like I said, he's the head of America's team. And he's already, he made headlines about, is he switching to Jordan weeks ago before it became official, just by posting that Instagram picture of him working out in those Jordan cleats. So I think it's huge. It'll be interesting to see what products come of this. Anything that has to do with Dak, whether it's cleats, whether it's his own Jordan signature shoe, which is a huge deal to get, especially for Jordans. So I'm excited. I can't afford any of it.
Yeah.
You can.
Well, another thing
can.
Yeah, another thing is this is why it was so important for Dak to get a deal done with the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree.
And I think that is why that's the market that a lot of these players are wanting to sign these big deals with Dallas, because Dallas is by far and away the most marketable team in the NFL. If you are on the Cowboys and you're not only a marketable player, but you play for a marketable team, it's just a double whammy, and it makes sense for all parties involved. And I think, like Shannon said, it's smart of Jordan to not only get into the football side of things, but it's smart of Jordan to get on the Dallas Cowboys. And then it's smart enough on his part to get the Dallas Cowboys quarterback on top of that. So it just kind of makes sense for every party involved.
Shannon brought this up earlier, Tanner. Dak said to the media he has buried his injury. His injury is behind him. He's not even thinking about it. Are we concerned about either this injury recurring or another Dak injury? I mean, if he has another injury, the narrative could become this guy's injury prone. You look at a guy like Anthony Davis, you look at a guy like Joel Embiid, some guys who are becoming, obviously in another sport, but becoming to get a reputation for being injury prone. Now, obviously he's going to say that. How much do you think in the back of his mind might the prospect of injury or this specific injury bother him moving forward?
I think inside Dak's own mind, I think he truly believes he's 100%. It's behind him and it's not going to happen again. So I think in his mind, I think he's confident moving forward. I think he moves around on it, not thinking twice or not hesitant to make a cut or to scramble. I think we're still going to see him use his legs just as much as he was using them before the injury. I don't see a scenario to where he's hesitant in terms of moving outside of the pocket, extending plays, things like that. And I don't think that hampers his play. Obviously, when you talk about injuries, it doesn't really matter what you can do previously to fix that injury. Injuries happen; they occur, and especially in the NFL, it's not if you get injured; it's when you get injured.
True.
So hopefully this is behind him, and hopefully it doesn't become a reoccurring thing like we've seen in some quarterbacks, like a Robert Griffin, like a Donovan McNabb. McNabb was always hampered with injuries. And like we've seen with a couple of very talented guys that had their careers somewhat derailed because of them. I God forbid that happens with Dak, but again, with the contract, with it only being 4 years, say it does become something, you're not locked into a 10-year contract like you are with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Talking Dallas Cowboys and football with Tanner Carlson. In a moment, we'll move on to other NFL teams, including the Houston Texans and the Green Bay Packers. But right now, talking about the Cowboys, Tanner, moving from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive line. You've talked to me right before we went to air, the very fact that defensively, and defense was the big problem a year ago, a historically bad defense. Very, very many new faces on the defensive line. Are you optimistic about what this defensive line may be able to do now that they're revamping things?
I don't know if it's optimism more so than it is just curiosity. I think I'm curious to see what the defensive line is going to bring because it's a lot of new faces. It's a lot of new players. Basically, any free agent acquisition that the Cowboys signed this offseason was not only on the defense side of the ball, but I think they had 3 or 4 defensive linemen that they signed. They got Basham from the Jets. He's kind of a stand-up outside. He's kind of a 3-4 linebacker where you can play him on edge if you're playing a 4-3 defense. And according to reports, we don't know anything about Dan Quinn's defense yet, but he's going to kind of mix and match and go 3-4, 4-3 and kind of sprinkle in a little bit of everything. And so he might use a guy like the Basham kid from the Jets as kind of that tweener to kind of come in and relieve some of the pressure off of Randy Gregory. And speaking of Randy Gregory, this will be his first full offseason, fingers crossed, with the team all offseason.
Crazy.
No suspensions, no jail time, no breaks from football, whatever it is, no mental health issues, no physical health issues. But this will be his first time since being drafted with the Dallas Cowboys that he's had the full offseason with the team.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
So that to me is huge because he's going to be the starting defensive end. You know, it's him and Lawrence. Those are the 2 veterans now. It's Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence are the 2 guys that this entire defensive line, regardless of if they're new and they've been in the league forever, but you're still looking up to those 2 guys as the 2 familiar faces on that defensive line. Those are really the only 2 familiar faces. You've got a couple of rookies from last year with Neville Gallimore, who I think he came on strong. Tristan Hill, he was a draft pick a few years back. He got hurt in the middle of the season. It looked like he was improving. So what are you going to do with some of these defensive linemen rotating? And then you get some free agents, that Brett Urban guy. He came from Chicago. So a lot of new faces, a lot of new looks, I think, that you're going to see from this defensive front. I know a lot of attention has been on the linebackers and the corners, as they should be. But I think what also helps with the terrible run defense that we've been experiencing is that front line, that defensive line, the run stoppers. And it's going to be a huge year for that group of guys to try to mesh and figure out what the problem was last year.
Tanner Carlson with us. I want to ask you this. Shannon and I earlier were talking about Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee, a coach who a lot of people think is on the hot seat, even though they've had a lot of success in the regular season in Milwaukee. I'm going to relate this now to the Dallas Cowboys. You had a coach blown out yesterday by the Indiana Pacers, Nate Bjorkgren, a one-year head coach of the Pacers. As I look at Mike McCarthy, and obviously that first year was not impressive. There were a ton of injuries, though, so he gets a pass on the injuries.
And you get COVID excuse.
Yes. But you look at his decision-making, hiring Mike Nolan, his buddy, to be defensive coordinator. I think we can question his decision-making there. You look at Green Bay after Mike McCarthy left, and they seem to be a better football team now after Mike McCarthy left. You've got Dan Quinn, a guy who took a team to a Super Bowl and was up 28-3 and should have won that Super Bowl as your defensive coordinator. Do you think Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat this year? You had Freddie Kitchens a couple of years ago, one and done with Cleveland. Jerry Jones can't be that patient if they have a bad year this year. How much do you think Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat?
I would say it is. I'd say it's like bathwater warm right now.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
I don't think it's like, I don't think he's on the, sitting in the devil's throne in hell right now. I don't think he's just like on fire right now, but I think that things are starting to boil a little bit. I think the temperature is starting to rise, especially how the beginning of the season go. I think the first half of the season, you really, really have to capitalize on, because that back end, the week before Thanksgiving, when you're playing the Chiefs, really through the rest of the season, you're backloaded with division games, and you've got very tough opponents throughout those divisional games as well. That's going to be a tough stretch, and you've got to win games at the beginning of the season to give yourself a chance to get through that tough stretch. And so if things start to go awry early on in this season, I think you see a new coach next year if it doesn't get figured out. I think Mike McCarthy is the reason why we won 6 games. I mean that in a positive light. I think if we didn't have Mike McCarthy as the head coach last year and we had Jason Garrett, we're probably looking at a 2 to 3 win team last year. So I give him the props for having this team not give up halfway through the year when Dak went down and then Dalton went down and we were going through DiNucci and we're going through Garrett Gilbert and we actually win a couple of games. You string a couple of wins together there late at the season. So I think you saw some positives. I think you see some good things. And now you've got an off-season program to where everybody is in the building. You're face-to-face in person. Everybody's going through OTAs and mini camps, which all these rookies, all these newcomers that he was bringing on didn't have that opportunity last year. I think you kind of get into a regular off-season this year. And I obviously am hopeful and optimistic that it gets figured out and things kind of get ironed out a little bit this year.
Shannon, do you see Mike McCarthy on the hot seat coming into this year?
I think it's really relative. I think it's relative to the rest of the NFC East, and I think it's relative to how, a guy like Lincoln Riley, who has been a hot name to be the next guy to be plucked from college football to come to the NFL, because much like the NBA, where we see one guy get ousted after 1 year, even though a guy like Greg Popovich, basically in the same situation this same season, but because of his tenure and because of his accolades and his reputation, we're not having those same conversations. And but I agree with him. I do think he did what he could do under the circumstances he was put in last year. This year, there's no excuse. So I wouldn't consider him being on thin ice here, but if he doesn't get 10 wins, say, this year, I think there's a discussion to be had based on availability and comparability to the rest of that division.
Yeah, I think you need to win the NFC East.
Which
this year
shouldn't be a hard thing to do. You can do it in 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, you're not like trying to win the NFC West.
No,
you're trying to win the NFC East.
You're not in the NFC South where you've got Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina. You're not looking at these teams that are all hopefully trying to make a playoff push. You're probably looking to oust one of these 4 or one of the 3 opponents in your division to overcome, maybe even above a 500 record. You should be safe.
Okay, there is another number 4 quarterback in the great state of Texas in the news over the last 24 hours. And I will admit, there was a time maybe 2 years ago when I used to say, hey, man, I would do a swap right now. Our number 4, Dak Prescott, for the Texans' number 4, Deshaun Watson. I actually believed that like 2 years ago. I don't anymore. Deshaun Watson yesterday reportedly saying he would like to be a Denver Bronco. That's the team he would like to play for, the Denver Broncos. Your thoughts on Deshaun Watson, and it's our poll question today, Tanner. If you were an NFL general manager in need of a quarterback, would you make a deal to acquire Deshaun Watson?
No.
I'm
staying away from it, not until everything comes out. I mean, I know you're innocent until proven guilty, and I'm fully aware of that, and I'm fully in support of that. But on the off chance or the likely chance, whichever way you want to look at it,
22 allegations
that you are guilty, you can't trade away all these assets and acquire a player who may not play for you or may not play for you for a couple of seasons or whatever your future holds with Watson and his future with the league. It's too risky until everything is settled and ready to go and what his future is going to be like. Unless you can get away with a highway robbery and maybe give up like a 7th round pick for him, but I don't think the Texans are going to do that. So I would stay away from it, at least for the time being.
Shannon, your thoughts on the status of Deshaun Watson after learning he would like to be a Denver Bronco?
I would completely stay away from it. I think everything needs to be, whatever the cases are going to be, they need to be decided and done before any moves are made for both sides, wherever he might land and whatever the Texans might do, right? Because they have cause to just let him go at this point. But ideally, they'd want something in return for him and to send him off and get something of value back, right? But to even sit here and be like, oh, could he go to the Broncos when, earlier we are talking about Aaron Rodgers, maybe he'll go to the Broncos, right? Because they could use him. But then there's a conversation of him in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. Was that due to his legacy? But to sit here and talk about this man who has 22 accusers for the things that he has been accused of doing, for any organization to ponder him coming to your team, to your fan base, where women at this day and age are rapidly becoming bigger and bigger fans of your league. I mean, talk about a way to just clear your fan base out. I would, if the Cowboys, I would turn on them instantly if it was even a thought to say, hey, look how great this guy is at football, though. And the Cowboys,
Yeah.
I know that's a little hypocritical because I know the Cowboys have had guys in the past,
Right.
but I mean 22 people in the span of months. And so the fact that we're sitting here today after what we heard yesterday of, oh, he's my buddy and he wants to come to the Broncos, I think we should, like, no. Stick
Well-
with what you have. Go get Aaron Rodgers. Do not go after this man until everything, we know all the facts. And the NFL still is going to probably suspend this guy no matter what.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then you may be getting him and then he might be sitting on your bench and you're paying him for it.
Yeah, and
Ridiculous.
you also have to. I mean, I always go back to the whole Aaron Hernandez situation, and I know it's hopefully not to that level with Watson, but with Aaron Hernandez, you had some players, some of his college teammates in the NFL wearing free Hernandez shirts and hats and stuff, and that's such a bad look for a player, a team, or any, just to assume that someone's, whatever their situation is, to assume that they're innocent or guilty. It's wrong to do either one. That's why you just kind of have to sit here and be patient with the rest of us to know actually what the answer is going to be. But you don't want that look, especially as an organization, as a franchise. It's one thing for players, individual players, to do that. It's bad. That's bad enough.
Yeah.
But like Shannon says, if you're an entire team, an entire fan base is going to turn their back on you as soon as that happens. So you just kind of have to sit and wait, just like the rest of us.
I think that makes the most sense. It needs to play out legally before another team can make a move.
And I think Shannon makes an excellent point that the NFL, they're suspending him regardless.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, Zeke's faced a 6-game suspension while he was in college and faced these allegations in college, and those charges were dropped. And that was a 6-game suspension.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what 22 alleged accusers are going to do to Watson, especially if any of them turn out that he's guilty on. Maybe not all of them, but even if it's some of them he's guilty and they don't drop those charges, I mean, the NFL is going to come down with an iron fist on this thing.
I think it's got to be a 1-year suspension.
Minimum.
Minimum. If you give Zeke 6, you got to give Deshaun Watson.
And he wasn't even in the NFL at that point.
Good point. Another excellent point. Tanner Carlson, a great follow on Twitter at Tanner Carlson20. Tanner, always outstanding, sir.
Yep.
Have yourself a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you guys next week.
We will do it next week, and I'm sure there'll be more Cowboys news to talk about.
Even if there's no news, you just throw the Cowboys out there.
Exactly.
There's some conversation will pop up.
Always something to talk about. Exactly. With America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Coming up, Shannon and I will take a look at what is coming at you on this Sports Thursday, June 10th. Get you fully prepped for anything that can and will happen in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, college sports, and more. Speaking of college, we got to start talking some serious Longhorn baseball as things are looking very, very interesting there. We'll get into that as well. Lots more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Okay, I know what I need to do. Do this. Hello, Fred, Jason, Anthony. Okay, let's do this. Here we come. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Thursday. Tonight, 2 NBA games. Milwaukee hosting Brooklyn. That's your early game. Brooklyn Nets up 2-0 in that one. That's at 6:30 on the 4-letter network. Your second game of that doubleheader, Utah, 1 game up on the LA Clippers. That game will be at Vivint Smart Home Arena in Salt Lake City at 9 o'clock tonight. And Shannon, it always happens throughout these NBA playoffs. Of the 2 games I want to watch tonight, the late one, and you and I wake up at the god-awful hour of 2:30 or 3 in the morning. The late one is the one I'm more interested in. So I guess I'll maybe start it, fall asleep, and catch the replay when I wake up.
Could you imagine doing radio like before? I mean, I don't know, maybe you can, but before like the likes of Twitter and
Oh my
YouTube
God.
and DVR and
Yeah.
I don't know when you got into radio, but like you have to stay up and watch everything.
Yes,
You can't catch up in the morning.
that's true. I guess I shouldn't
I
complain.
wouldn't be here if
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
That's a very good point. I at least I know when I wake up, I can go
Right.
look at replays. I can look at the highlights. I can go to YouTube. So yeah,
Or even during the season when there's games on all at the same time.
yeah,
Which one you gonna choose?
exactly. And if you miss something, then there's all kinds of replays. So we live in an amazing world. Speaking of amazing, we didn't talk about this yet. Shannon, did you see I guess it was at a Padres game yesterday, a woman holding a baby it makes a one-arm catch of a foul ball, a one-handed catch, because in her other arm is a baby. And I'm looking at the video footage. The baby looks to be maybe 1-year-old, maybe less. Do you? And again, Shannon, we're not parents.
Right.
You don't have kids. I don't have kids. But do you bring a toddler who you are holding in your arms to a baseball game? I don't know.
You know, I started going to the Texas football games when I was 2. So
Okay.
I've been in it for a minute. But I myself would never bring a 2-year-old, even 3-year, probably not for a while.
Not to mention the fact,
Like it's a hassle.
yeah.
You got to pay more attention to the kid than the game.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm sure the baby that you didn't have to buy a ticket for, but at some point you will have to buy it a ticket. I don't know.
Well,
I
and
admire her commitment though.
yeah, well, and here's my weird, and just I hope this isn't too weird, but this is a real world issue. When your parents took you to Longhorn games when you were 2, all right, that's kind of cool, but uniquely at a baseball game, and here this woman caught a foul ball. Now, granted, it bounced once, so it wasn't a line drive, thank God, but it happens every year. Certain fans get hit by foul balls. It's one of the ugly parts of baseball. And there's a disclaimer on your ticket that says you're on your own. And by coming to the games, you accept no responsibility for a foul ball maybe hitting you. And I think it was at a Dodger game a couple of years ago. An elderly woman was killed by a foul ball. It hit her in the head. Your 1-year-old baby, your toddler, your babe in arms can't make the conscious decision to want to be in the line of fire of a foul ball. It's not, I'm not going to bang this drum and make it a big issue. And I know, I know mathematically the odds are you're not going to get hit. Therefore your baby's not going to get hit, but you bring a toddler who you have to hold in your arms to a baseball game. You are assuming a certain percentage chance risk of a foul ball coming in the direction of your baby. I just don't know if that's too smart.
Well, and I don't know exactly where she was sitting, but a lot of people bring their kids or younger kids to these events when they're sitting that close so that they can get the attention of the superstar or the player to either get that memory of them with their kid or even get a memory for themselves. I mean, I've told you when I was in LA and I was at, a Walk of Fame star ceremony, Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it was for an Avenger. So all the Avengers were there. And so all of these people that collect autographs for a living to turn around and sell them. Half of them brought their kids because they used the kids as the getting the autographs,
Yeah.
not realizing then that those kids were then handing them back to their parents who were then going to go sell them. So I don't know. But she, whether or not if she brought the kid there for the attention, she got it. If she brought the kid there just to enjoy the game, I think they got that too.
Yeah. And exactly. And that went out all over social media. So now she has a video. She with her kid, she's got a video of her catching the foul ball at a San Diego Padres game. So it's like, hey, babe, this is you at 1 or less. And I'm not good at judging kids' ages. This kid may be less than this could be an 8-month-old kid for all I know. But anyway, so there's that. Something we didn't talk about, Shannon, and we should talk about it briefly. It's one of those stories I don't like talking about because it's very, very ugly. However, the son of legendary Michigan Wolverine football coach Bo Schembechler. And when I was a kid, Shannon, Bo Schembechler was like a name on a par with Woody Hayes at Ohio State, Darrell Royal at the University of Texas, and Bear Bryant at Alabama. Those guys were all coaching at about the same time, and they were all legendary. Bo Schembechler was a big deal. Now, and apparently there's going to be a press conference later today. Bo Schembechler died a number of years ago. His son, Matt Schembechler, is now 62 years old. And Matt Schembechler says when he was 10 years old, he was molested by the University of Michigan team doctor, Robert Anderson. He said he told his father about it, and his father didn't do anything except punch him with a closed fist. He said, quote, that was the first time he closed fist punched me. It knocked me all the way across the kitchen. This is a 10-year-old kid. And Bo Schembechler went on to never do anything about this. This team doctor, who has also since passed away, Robert Anderson, apparently worked at the University of Michigan as a team doctor from 1966 to 2003. This is an ugly story, a sick story, Shannon, but it brings back memories of Joe Paterno, who I mentioned coaches in that era. Paterno was coaching at Penn State at the time. It brings back memories of Joe Paterno and Penn State. And, we hate talking about stories like this, but when they surface, they're a big deal. And certainly if these things are true, and in this case, if kids are being molested by somebody associated, in this case, with the University of Michigan football team, that's something that we should shine a light on, I think.
At this point, I think the Big Ten needs to do a case study on every doctor that's ever worked for any athletic area in at those universities, because of course you have Michigan State and that gymnastics doctor.
Oh God, yeah.
And then more recently, kids coming out saying the Ohio State football doctor was being inappropriate, and that those are more recent.
Yeah.
And I think those stories have helped others who experienced it back when it was a little more taboo to talk about it back in those times, right? That they are now able to come forward. It is strange that both, his father and the doctor have since passed.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that does to his father's legacy, or I don't know if that doctor was like an acclaimed doctor, but it's crazy, especially for parents when you are, letting your kid go to a school somewhere, whether it's a school just down the road or in another state, and they're an athlete. And part of being an athlete is you get hurt or you need treatment at some point. And you're trusting these adults who are looking after your child to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And then stories like this come out, that makes it really hard. I mean, it has effects on recruiting. It has effects. It trickles down.
Yeah.
It's more than just about that one incident. And it doesn't shed a good light on the university as a whole.
No, absolutely not. And, and some people invariably in a case like this, and again, we don't know what happened for sure. We don't know what is true and what is not true. And Matt Schembechler, the son of Bo Schembechler, is now 62 years old. But invariably, Shannon, I hear people say, well, hey, why are you just coming out now and saying this? You know, why didn't you're 62. Why didn't you speak out when you were 30 or whatever, 25?
Did right after having up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he told his dad at 10. He got punched in the face and knocked across the kitchen by dad, reportedly, or so he says. But again, and I go back, and there's I told you about this, a great documentary, multi-part documentary on Apple Plus TV with Oprah Winfrey and Prince Harry, and it's on trauma and depression. And, you know, trauma affects different people in different ways. And certainly in this case, you know, a childhood sexual trauma, which is what Matt Schembechler is saying he endured as a kid. Everybody's different. Everybody handles it differently. There's all kinds of grief and sometimes guilt and often shame attached to it. And sometimes, on multiple levels, if you're Matt Schembechler, probably for years, you know, Bo Schembechler was regarded as a god in football at the University of Michigan, in the same way Darrell Royal now at Texas, or Bear Bryant at Alabama. Especially if you're related to one of these guys, if you had some information, you probably don't want to tarnish that reputation, but maybe you've got something. So it's very delicate. It's very sad. Apparently Matt Schembechler is going to have a press conference today. Maybe we're going to learn more about this. And as I said at the outset, Shannon, we don't like talking about this. It's the ugly side of sports. But as you mentioned, that doctor at the University of Michigan with all the gymnasts, and he's now in prison forever and ever and ever. Obviously, Jerry Sandusky in prison now. Joe Paterno has since passed away at Penn State. You know, if these stories are true, and often they are, I think the best thing we can do is shine a light on them. And as you mentioned, maybe as a cautionary tale for other universities and other doctors and coaches and people in power to maybe, to the best of our ability, keep an eye on things and do what we can to check these things and keep them from ever happening again.
With where we are now, everyone like cancel culture. Let's cancel them. Let's cancel that. I think it's more about holding people accountable for their actions, right? And then seeing how they grow from them. And, you know, just putting up an apology doesn't change anything. And so they're holding people accountable because they weren't able to be held accountable at a time, right? When back in that day, when he got hit by his father, like that probably wasn't as seen as a huge deal back then, right? I mean, things happened in the home that would never happen now on a more regular basis. It doesn't make them right, doesn't make them wrong. They were just more accepted. Where now we're holding things like that and actions like that more accountable for people. And so that's just where we are now. I agree the argument of, well, why didn't you come out with it? Would you come out with that and be metaphorically punched in the face repeatedly by people who would call you a liar?
Yeah.
After your dad physically hit you in the face?
Yeah, and I'll bet you all these years later, there's going to be people calling him a liar, probably, who loved Bo Schembechler. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, hold these people accountable.
All right, Shannon, quickly, we asked everybody to be a general manager on our poll question. Would you go after Deshaun Watson? Did we learn if we would do that on our poll?
A lot of people, surprisingly to me, said yes, 44%, whereas 27% said no, and 27% said hell no. I know together that combines for no's winning this, but people that said yes, tell me why.
44% say, yeah, Deshaun Watson, bring him. Woo! Yeah, good idea. Oh, my God. Shannon, outstanding. And once again, the Salty Shakedown, a tour de force as always. Great stuff today as always.
Sir. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your thirsty Thursday.
Woo, it is a thirsty Thursday. I'm kind of thirsty. Dave Ayler, may your Cardinals continue to win again today. Friday's almost here. You are correct. Tanner Carlson, our thanks to him as well. We will see you in 21 hours, I do believe. Have yourself a great thirsty Thursday. Adios.